Thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. On today's show, it's official. Luis Rojas is the new third base coach for the Yankees. Aaron Boone conducted an interview in his car. And I know this isn't a Mets podcast, but Noah Syndergaard is back in the American League, but on the West Coast. Good move. We'll discuss that and more next.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Yankees. I'm Stacey Gotsulias, joined by Abbey Mastracco. Abbey, how are you today?
You know, not as well as Noah Syndergaard. I think he's having a pretty good day.
I think so too. You know, he gets away from the Mets. He's going to be in Southern California. He's making $21 million.
My hood. That's my old hood.
Yeah, he's doing really good today. Before we get into everything, and I mean, there's not that much to talk about today. You know, some things are happening in baseball. Like, as we said last week, things will probably be sped up just because of the looming lockout. But, we could see other moves made, maybe, that we may have to discuss later in the week. We'll see. But before we get into all that, as usual, you can listen to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher. You can tell your smart device in your car to play podcast Locked On Yankees. And if you're looking at our beautiful faces on YouTube, you can subscribe there. So, Luis Rojas is official. And can I just say, in the one interview that I saw of him, it was a Zoom interview, he looks so much younger to me today than he ever did when he was with the Mets. I almost didn't recognize him.
Okay, well, the Mets age everybody, and I can speak for that. My 12-step skincare regimen, was extended from maybe like 8 steps to 12 when I started covering the Mets. But I thought he's always looked young, though. Honestly, I've always thought he's, I don't know, maybe he just like has like a young-looking face to me.
Yeah, it was just funny because there was one clip of him where they showed him in the dugout, and I looked at him, and then they showed him in the Zoom shot, and I thought, my God, he looks 10 years younger right now. He just looks so relieved.
Or he has a ring light.
Yeah, that's true. Hi, case in point.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems like he's excited about this move. You know, some people were poo-pooing it when it first came out, but we discussed this last week. I think it's a great move for him and for the Yankees, and yeah.
He's got a ton of experience, he brings a lot to the staff. I mean, he not only just being a manager, but he was a third base coach in the Dominican leagues, and he was a manager in AA, and he was doing quality control stuff for the Mets for a while. He's got a ton of experience. He's the son of Felipe Alou. This is his life, baseball. He's a baseball lifer. He was in dugouts growing up. So like his instincts are going to be, I don't know, sort of natural, more so than just trying to like learn it. And he's a really, really good guy. He's got a great reputation in the game. He's also really good with young Latin players, which is important. It's important for everyone to have somebody on staff who speaks Spanish and who can, relate to people with that background, with a Latin background. But he is really good at connecting with the young players, partially from some of his experiences as a minor league manager. And it's a good move. It's a good move for the Yankees.
Yeah. And I think he'll help Boone. Boone sometimes needs help.
Well, they have a good relationship. I thought it was interesting when he said Aaron Boone was the first person to call him to congratulate him when he got the Mets job. He said Aaron Boone called him and said, welcome to New York. And they've sort of formed a friendship from there. And they're in two very unique positions. They manage in the baseball capital of the world, and it's a pressure cooker here, as we've talked about. So there's experiences that the two of them have that not everybody else is going to relate to. And maybe that's going to work to their advantage. And when it comes to managing and tactics, and they can share some information and just relate to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And it is true because, and I feel like New York managers should be more supportive of each other because it's no matter which team you play for, manage, are part of, the media is just going to be on you no matter what you do.
Yeah,
And
it's relentless.
yeah, and you need that kind of support from your fellow coaches. And I think that's actually pretty cool of Boone to do that because, he was only here for a little bit as a player, but he's also a baseball lifer. He grew up on benches. His
Mhm.
brother was in it. His dad was in it. His grandfather was in it. I mean, baseball lineage up the wazoo. And I just think, yeah, this would be a really good move for them. Now, Boone, I love this. He conducted an interview in his
In his
car in
car,
case
yeah.
you didn't see it.
And I was on the call. Yeah, no, I was on that call. And
Yeah.
I was wondering in the beginning, I was like, because I jumped on a few minutes late. So he had just started talking, and I was like, this cannot be safe if he's driving. And then he broke up a little bit during something, and the PR guy was like, if you're moving, you're breaking up a little. He's like, I'm not driving. Like, he wanted everyone to know I mean, look, I've conducted conference calls in my car. We're not. I was trying to remember. I think like the most random place that I have. This is like something that reporters always do. Like, we love to talk about the weird places where we've like jumped on conference calls or conducted interviews. Like, I've had to go into bathrooms and press boxes, and there was one time where I was leaving a hotel because I'd been at a wedding in South Orange County, and also being safe, like Aaron Boone, I did not want to drink and drive back up to Los Angeles, 2 hours away. So I
Of
got a
course.
hotel, and the next day I had to cover the Ducks. So I also maybe had a little bit too much to drink at the wedding. So I went to In-N-Out Burger, and I drove around the corner, and I ate my hangover meal in the back of my car while I stole free internet from a yoga studio and did a conference call with the Ducks. And I just was like, what? My door was open because it was also a nice day and it was by the beach. So like, I got a nice ocean breeze. And I was watching all these people who were like doing yoga like on a Sunday morning, just watch me in the back of my car, hungover, eating In-N-Out, working, like talking to the Ducks about the power play. We're very adaptable in the media.
Now, in a moment, we'll get into more about what Boone actually said on the call. I only saw really one clip, but some of what he said was pretty important. But first, I love Thanksgiving. I love all the good food and the treats, and I'm so glad I have a Peloton bike now that I can work out and work off all those calories. But maybe you want a yummy dessert that isn't so full of calories and sugar. It's the perfect time for Built Bars. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it. One slice of pie has upwards of 300 calories, and that's on the low end. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories with 4 grams of sugar and plenty of protein. So replace that coconut cream pie with a coconut Built Bar. Or go for raspberry instead of raspberry pie. Sully of Locked On MLB loves the raspberry Built Bar. There's lots of good flavors to replace any pie. They're low calorie, low carb, low fat, high in protein, and covered in 100% chocolate. Share some at your family gatherings. It'll make things less awkward. And maybe your Aunt Betty hasn't tried a Built Bar yet. There's nothing like a Built Bar Black Friday, so mark your calendar. Black Friday will be a huge event with all sorts of surprises. That means limited time flavors may be popping up, so check that out. Go to Built.com, use our promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, that's Locked15 for 15% off at Built.com. So Aaron Boone was asked, and I can't remember who asked it. They showed his face, didn't say his name in the YouTube clip, and I didn't recognize him. And I recognize most of the beat writers and reporters because I know a bunch of them. But he was asked about Carlos Correa and if it matters because of the past that Correa has with everything that happened with Houston. And Boone basically echoed Brian Cashman. Like, he wasn't as, I wouldn't say he wasn't as definite in the way he said it, but he reiterated that he's the best shortstop available.
Yeah.
And if we're going to try and go for him, of course we're going to go for him. Cashman was like,
yeah,
it's like, of course we're going to go after him. Boone had a little different way of saying it, but he basically said that.
Well, yeah, you're going to want to sort of stay in lockstep with your general manager. I wasn't surprised at his response to that. I think it would have been more surprising had he had some sort of like completely left field type of opinion, or had he been a lot more candid. But this is he's on the same page, or at least he wants to present the image of being on the same page as his GM. And I don't know that. I think some of the controversy tends to be overblown because that's just what happens in this market.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand about Carlos Correa, he is a really strong leader in the clubhouse, and just because he's outspoken doesn't make it so that he rubs everybody the wrong way. He still knows how to conduct himself, and a leader has to bring other people together. And there's a lot of personalities in a clubhouse. So, look, I still think we talked about it last week. I still think he's the answer at shortstop.
Oh, yeah. And I believe the Yankees think that too. But I was thinking about this just because of the deal that Eduardo Rodriguez got from Detroit. I'm thinking that maybe Detroit's going for it, and it's possible they could go after Correa. And wouldn't that be horrible for Yankee fans thinking that, ooh, maybe we'll get Carlos Correa, and then the Tigers swoop in and say, hey, we're going to try and win again, and we're going to get Correa. Now, of course, there's fallback choices. No offense to the guys, that are there. Corey Seager, Trevor Story, even Marcus Semien, because he hasn't been re-signed by the Blue Jays or signed by the Blue Jays yet. So there are fallback guys, but yeah, I'm all about Correa, and I think that the Yankees should really try and go for him. But did did Boone say anything else enlightening today during that call, or was it just?
There were some injury updates. Aaron Hicks could possibly play winter ball. Jameson Taillon, his timeline is sort of they're hoping he can throw off the mound in like January, February, so he'll be ready for spring training. But instead of like coming into spring training in like shape already, which is what people tend to do these days, like spring training did not used to be. Guys come into spring training and they're already like ready to go. They're already throwing in the upper 90s. It used to be that spring training was where you trained to get ready for the season. Now they're already ready. But he will sort of ramp up as things go along. I liked his I just thought this was sort of humorous. His comment about we are always in search of a more perfect roster, and Lindsay Adler tweeted it out with the American flags, and then had to educate some of her followers on the Constitution, which that's not 2021. I don't know what it is.
I mean, there are a lot of people that need to be schooled on the Constitution.
Exactly. Yeah, he faced some good questions about like the athleticism of the roster, because they do need to get more athletic, and we've addressed this a couple times, and they need to get better defensively. So they're always in search of the more perfect roster.
Yeah. That would be great. Now, not to toot my own horn and not to plug something I wrote way the hell back in March, but for MLB.com, their YouTube channel, I helped them. I wrote an episode about the history of spring training.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. I will put a link to the video in the description of this video, and I will put a link in when you listen to this on audio. I'll put the link in there too, because I'm actually pretty proud of it. Couldn't believe they approached me to do it. And I'd never written a script of any kind really for anything. And yeah, it's like a 12-minute video about the history of spring training, why it actually started, how much it's evolved in the last 20 years. Because as you were saying, now guys are putting themselves on Instagram. Guys are already working out, getting ready for the season, where literally the guys would show up for spring training like hungover from drinking all winter and having to detox for spring. Like that's why spring training actually started. So yeah, things are completely different now. And of course, guys are making more money now. Back then, guys had winter jobs. Some guys worked on farms. Some guys were bartenders, which didn't help because then they were drinking on the job and stuff like that, But yeah, originally it was detox. One of the owners was sick and tired of his players coming into the season just not looking well and playing well, and took them to the hot springs in Arkansas. And that's kind of one of the origins of spring training. So it was actually pretty interesting to learn all that stuff when I was doing the research for the script.
I just love hearing stories from the old timers about how like we used to come in and we'd have like, a couple beers in the clubhouse after our first workout. Now it's like They just have like pre-portioned nutrition shakes or protein shakes with like different vitamins in them for specialized for each guy's need. And like, then you got your like, your pre-stretch routine and you got your workout schedule. It's baseball didn't used to be like the most athletic sport, I guess. And now you really
Right.
do have these like pure athletes. Ask any pitcher in the National League, like they still think of themselves as athletes. When they get in the cages, they can get very competitive, which is sort of, I always enjoy watching pitchers hit in spring training for like the first 10 seconds and then I'm over it. But
Yeah.
um
The
it,
novelty wears off.
yeah, it does. But I always love hearing the stories from the old timers about beers in the clubhouse, and it's a lot different now.
Oh yeah. I mean,
But
guys smoked. Even
yeah,
into the 80s, guys were still smoking. And it's just like not that guys that played baseball were out of shape. I mean, you still had some guys. I mean, even Lou Gehrig was in really good shape in the 30s, and you had guys like that. And even when you look at Babe Ruth, it wasn't like he was horribly obese. Like if you put him next to someone from today, he wouldn't look that big. But yeah, now it's just really they're making more money. A lot of them, the ones that are making more money, or the ones that want to make more money. So they, of course, they're getting themselves ready really
yeah,
early. So it's not a question of if they're going to play; it's going to be where they're going to play when they get to spring training, and they want to basically make it where the managers are like, "All right, you're going to be here, you're going to be here," and it's not like a process of having to try out anymore because that was also a thing, and it doesn't really happen that much anymore. Sure, you have like non-roster invitees and they sometimes get picked for the team in case there's injuries and stuff, but yeah, it's really a lot different. And yeah, some of these guys with their workouts, I was talking about Stanton the other day with now that they're
he's
doing
doing more,
yoga instead
incorporating more
of
yoga and more like restorative.
and not bashing sledgehammers into tires and doing all that crazy CrossFit stuff. It's, yeah, it's just, it's funny to watch them do all that stuff. And yeah, some of these guys though, they come up to the plate and you're just like, oh my God, they actually look like the guys from the Bugs Bunny cartoon because they're all so giant and muscular.
Yeah,
It's crazy. Now, we're going to talk about Noah Syndergaard going from the Mets to the Angels because that was a big story in New York. And I know it's not a Mets podcast, but, the Yankees will be facing him maybe when
yeah.
he's pitching for the Angels. But first, let's talk about Bet Online because they are back and better than ever with a new web interface for the start of basketball season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today, and you can receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive that bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So Noah Syndergaard, that was the big news. He reached a one-year deal worth $21 million with the Anaheim Angels. Hell, I'd be happy with $210 right now. So $21 million. Woo! That's
Well, and his qualifying was 18 million, and people thought that was a little bit high for somebody who's only pitched a couple innings in 2 years. What was like 2.2 innings, something like that.
But hey, if Andrew Heaney's getting $8.5 million from the Dodgers for pitching the way he does, it's, not that shocking, but yeah, I could see people being like, he hasn't pitched in how many years? How are you giving him that much money? But
yeah. Well,
yeah,
I mean, they're going based on what he has accomplished and what they think he can accomplish for them. Some future projections there. He's a high velo guy. He's a high strikeout guy. The Angels desperately need starting pitching. I mean,
oh yeah,
the entire their system has just been devoid of any high-end pitching prospects for the last few years. I mean, God, this is going back to like 2014, 2015 when Jerry Dipoto was in there just trading everybody. He left in 2015. And
you mean like he does when he's with the Mariners too? Because
that guy, nobody loves to make the trades more than Jerry Dipoto. I mean, he even made one from a hospital bed.
yeah, he needs a trade intervention because he is really out of control sometimes. It's almost like when he doesn't do it, when the trade deadline comes and goes and he's not involved in something, it's almost like, wait, is he feeling okay? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
So, I mean, you've got Mike Trout and you've got Shohei Ohtani. Your window of contention is now. It should be. And they have not been able to do anything. There's been various reasons. It's been a lot of player development. They had a lot of payroll tied up in Albert Pujols, and before that, they had payroll tied up in Josh Hamilton and that whole debacle. They have an owner who is known to meddle a little bit, so Billy Epler should be able to handle the Mets just fine because he's got experience with that. Noah, I think Noah's a fit there. What's interesting to me is that the Mets didn't have a chance to even counter the offer. Sandy Alderson told WFAN that tonight, and it's a good situation for Noah. A 1-year deal. It's a 1-year show me contract, prove it contract.
Right.
A lot of money. He gets to play with the two best players in the world. I'm curious to see how the rotation is managed with Noah and Shohei. So I think it's a good fit for him. I do. I think the Mets were banking on him accepting. It was a gamble to offer him that much in a qualifying offer, but it worked last year with Marcus Stroman, and I think they were thinking it would work again. Noah talked about how much he really wanted to be back in New York and loved being a Met, and in the end, he got a better deal and he took it.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Sal Licata, who hosts the overnight shift on WFAN, I have to read this tweet because I laugh so hard. I love New York radio, guys. Syndergaard is a clown. Yeah, he must have really wanted to stay in New York and apparently really loved being a Met. Enjoy the few extra $1 million. Losing in Anaheim, Mets are better off.
Okay. Well, this notion that fans have that players owe them something in situations like this, they don't owe you anything.
Right.
No, Syndergaard he got a better deal than what the Mets were offering him, and he saw an opportunity that's good for him and good for his career. You and I would do the same thing.
Hell yeah, in a heartbeat.
Most people listening to this podcast, if they got a better deal in a better opportunity, they'd take it.
Yeah. I would move to Antarctica if someone paid me enough money to do it.
But even honestly, if you work, your current job and you get offered a lot more money in salary, somebody else offers you a lot more money, you're probably going to take it. It's just, it's a good opportunity for him. And it's a little bit more, it's less, it's not as much of there's less pressure on him out there. There is going to be a lot of pressure on the Angels and a lot of eyes on the Angels because they need to get Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani to the playoffs. But it's so different out there. It's so much more laid back. It's so tough to explain. I know we talked about it in my first episode, but it's an easy position for him it's a good position for him to go out there every day and show that he can be the pitcher that he was in 2016 now that he's healthy.
Right. And plus, I mean, everyone's still going to be paying extra attention to Shohei Ohtani because he's Shohei Ohtani. I mean, yeah, people will be like, ooh, Noah Syndergaard's here, but you have a pitcher who hits also and is really good, and it's going to be so much less pressure on him. He's not going to have, what I just read, people acting like that in Anaheim. Yeah. And this is a radio host. I understand he's a Mets fan. I understand because I'm a Yankee fan hosting a Yankees podcast, but I try not to be like that. I'll get mad at things.
Look, there's always some sentimentality when it comes to teams. I mean, we have ties back to teams because our families, our dads got us into it, our moms got us into it, our grandparents. So we do create these attachments, but they don't owe us anything at the end of the day. They really don't. You're buying tickets and you do have, you're paying their salaries in a little bit buying tickets, but you're not directly paying them $21 million. So, right. It's unfortunate that fans don't get a little bit more of a stake in or say in what happens. That might be an interesting experiment to have some team let fans vote on some, I don't know.
I'm thinking about certain Yankee
Seems like
fans
an
that I would
episode of Ted Lasso.
yeah, never, ever, ever
Yeah,
want
it's
that.
but, you know, maybe Noah's time with the Mets ran its course. I mean,
Yeah.
he had there was the injuries, there was, some ineffectiveness, there was some times where he had to grow up. He had to grow up when he was with the Mets. I mean, I remember standing there in the locker room in 2017 and he yelled at Jay Horowitz, and it was not a good look. And all of us were sitting there saying, I mean, at that point, we turned around, we're like, hey, Jay, you okay? What are
Oh.
you doing? Um, and it was like a week later that he refused an MRI, and Sandy Alderson said, I can't strap him down and throw him into the tube. That
Yeah.
whole debacle, because there's always a debacle with the Mets. He had to do some growing up, and I think he did when he was recovering from surgery from Tommy John, because injuries will humble you real quick. Real
Mhm.
quick, you don't know if you're going to come back the same pitcher. And
Right.
he had some comments earlier this year about, mentally it being very tough for him to be out of baseball for this long. And I thought that was sort of a sign that he was growing up as well. He wasn't just like, no, I'm fine. I'm tough. I'm a tough guy. I'm Thor. I I'm just recovering and I'm doing my rehab and everything's going great. But he was very open about mentally it was not easy for him. So I think he has done some growing up, and it maybe it's best for him to have a new start. Maybe it's
Yeah.
best for the Mets to have a new. The Mets are getting lots of new starts. They just need some new pitchers now.
Yeah, and, yeah. I will miss Noah Syndergaard, teasing Mr. Met and joking about his relationship with Mrs. Met, because that was always a funny thing on Twitter. If you're not on
Yeah,
Twitter and you don't know what I'm talking about, yeah, that was,
maybe now he can tease Mickey and Minnie Mouse.
oh, that's right, Anaheim. Yeah, that would be something.
Yeah.
But it will be interesting to see him back in the American League, like I said, it's not like the Yankees played the Angels that much, and you never know. We might not even be able to, there are some times where the Yankees play teams and you expect to see them play against a pitcher and it just doesn't line up right.
Yeah.
But, I would like to see that because it's been a while since we've seen Thor. And
Well, and Noah's a pitcher who isn't afraid to go to a manager and say, I want the ball on this day against this team. And you always like pitchers that do that, because that means they're getting fired up for if you want them out there fired up. So I don't know. Maybe that is one that he's going to circle on his calendar, and a return to New York. Every player certainly, um, it circles that one on their calendar that has played in New York before, making a return, even if it's not to Citi Field where he pitched for many years. Just returning to New York in general is always a special thing for players who've played here. So maybe it lines up, maybe it doesn't, but it's always an event when the Yankees play the Angels because of Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, and those are two players that the Angels or that the Yankees. I think at some point we thought they might be Yankees because that's just what the Yankees do. They grab all the best players in free agency, and
or at least they try to.
yeah. So
When Hal allows them.
exactly. So it's always an event when they do play. I was out on the West Coast working on a story on Ohtani this year when the Yankees were there, and uh, it's still even in the Angels were out of it, and there was still a buzz in the crowd because it's the Yankees, and people go. I sat in Shohei Ohtani's cheering section for a little bit, and it's that for a team that hasn't really won. When was the last time in the playoffs? 2014. Uh, I was there.
Wow.
That wasn't good. They still sort of command some attention for
Who'd they
obvious
play
reasons.
in 2014?
The Royals, the upstart Kansas City Royals. They got swept in the first round after the Royals won the wild card.
That's right. Okay. See, 2014, my dad passed away in early October, so the playoffs are kind of hazy. I know the Giants won, but
Yeah.
everything else about I don't even remember who before the World Series. I don't remember anything. So, okay. I forgot the Angels made the playoffs in 2014. So is that the only time Trout's been in the playoffs?
The only time he's been in the playoffs, yeah.
See, oh God, what a waste. What a
And the
waste.
attention
So
was
annoying.
not necessarily even on him at the time, from what I remember. It was because he's Mike Trout, but I remember more of the attention, it felt like to me at least, more of the attention was on Jared Weaver.
That's right. Wow. That's 7 years ago. That's a long
And
time ago.
and Matt Shoemaker, because he was sort of a dark horse for Rookie of the Year that year.
Mhm.
So, more it didn't feel like the spotlight's always on Trout, but it felt like maybe he was sharing it. I don't know. It just, because I remember being there and Trout did not have the largest media scrum that he usually does.
Right.
Weaver had a pretty big one, and the Royals were such a great story, and so it's the only postseason for Mike Trout. 3
That's a
games.
crime.
Yep.
It's an absolute crime. I say this as a Yankee fan, and I said this on my show during the summer. I said the fact that people are only really seeing Shohei Ohtani nationally during an All-Star game, because it's not like ESPN is putting Angels games on. It's not like Fox is really showing them, because they're not doing anything. And,
Yeah.
until
There
they
were a
start.
few at the beginning of the season because, like, I remember it was the first game that Shohei, I think, was pitching and hitting, and
Mhm,
we were all very interested to see how Joe Madden would handle some of the late game switching.
right.
Um, but yeah, they're not going to get a lot of national TV time after about June, July because they fade in the standings.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, those are the types of players you want to see. You want to see Mike
Yeah.
Trout make a crazy catch at the wall. You want to see Shohei Ohtani do both things, hit and pitch, because it's
Yeah.
just, he's such a freak of nature, and he's such a good base runner too, which is another thing I was
He's
surprised
good at
about when I
everything.
saw him.
And he's
Yeah.
also like he did not play in the outfield the weekend that I was there, but I was watching him shag fly balls, and he's very adept at taking the right routes, and he's got great vision and instincts. And it's just what amazes me. I wrote this in the story that I wrote a few months ago for Bleacher Report. It's so taxing to pitch. It is so taxing on your body to pitch. Like you pitchers go 5 days because in between starts because you're hurling your entire arm off your body,
Yeah.
70, 80 times in one night. It is so taxing. And then he goes out there and he hits the next day like nothing's wrong. And it's remarkable to me to see how quickly he bounces back and how quickly he recovers. And yeah. Yeah, if you have a chance to see Otani in person, absolutely take it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've been to Anaheim, but I was there either the week after the Yankees played or the week before the Yankees played. And I was so bummed because I had really great seats. I would have been right there. I would have been right by the circle, the on deck circle,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
was in a dugout suite and on the visitor side. And when I thought about it, I was like, oh man, if I was just here in a week, the Yankees would be here. That'd be so awesome. But I saw the Tigers instead, but it was fun. Um, so just some programming notes. I am, for the audience, I'm recording a crossover with the new Locked On Blue Jays hosts. So I'm kind of excited about this because I've never really spoken to them before. I know Jen from writing with her, but I've never done a podcast with them. So this should be fun. And I'm going to figure out how to put it on YouTube because they're not on YouTube yet. So I don't know if I have to put up a graphic or something, but we'll see how that goes. But that'll be for Thursday. And then Abby will be back for Friday's episode.
Bringing you
Yay!
into the weekend.
Yeah, maybe by Friday we'll have more Yankee stuff to talk about. That would be really great. So for now, that's it for this episode of Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'd like to remind you that you can listen to this show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can watch and subscribe to us on YouTube. And when you get into your car, you can tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Bets. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. One more thing, if you could be so kind, please rate the podcast and spread the word about this podcast to your fellow Yankee fans. We would really appreciate it. Enjoy your Wednesday, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Ooh.